Hey guys, my name is Joe, and I'm going to be expanding on Module three's learning objectives 3 and 4, both from Chapter 17. And those two are going to be explain how drugs in this lecture work with the central nervous system, including mechanisms and sites of action of, and I'm choosing nicotine. And link the physiological changes that result from repeat drug use to the behaviors associated with substance abuse. And here I want to put emphasis on the research that I'm doing is a lot geared towards adolescent nicotine exposure using studies of both adolescent mice and adolescent humans. So, nicotine. The left picture that I have shows nicotine, and nicotine is going to be shown by the bigger circles here. And it's a excitatory direct receptor agonist that binds to the nicotinic ionotropic acetylcholine receptor and acts as a stimulant. And that mimics the neurotransmitter where it's binding and attaches where the neurotransmitter, usually dopamine, would go. And that is how it produces its or influences its postsynaptic potential. So in the right picture, I have two of probably the most important dopamine pathways, at least for nicotine, and that's going to be the mesocortical and the mesolimbic paths. So nicotine increases activity of the mesolimbic system and decreases dopamine release into the nucleus accumbens. And also it's going to release into the prefrontal cortex, but a lot of it is going to pull into the nucleus accumbens. So what happens to receptors at after repeat use? So in animals, we can see more binding sites in the brain of the animals that consume nicotine daily. And that is shown by upregulation of those high affinity receptor binding sites that we looked at earlier. And that will result in decreased dopamine if you don't have the nicotine. And what that does is it suggests the increased need for dopamine in those users might play a role in drug seeking behaviors like going out and buying nicotine products and stuff like that. And another possible result of chronic use is epigenetic changes, and that could be multi-generational or transgenerational. And that suggests that offspring of nicotine users could have certain predispositions without being directly exposed to nicotine or the like. And that is observed in mice insofar far as the third generation after the nicotine user. So we also see that repeat use makes physiological changes in times of reduced plasticity. And so times of reduced plasticity for humans, that's going to be whenever we're in utero and whenever we're around the time of puberty. So what? Like, what's the big deal? Most smokers, or I'm using the term smokers lightly. I need to say nicotine users. Most nicotine users start before the age of 18. And so what that affects is neural circuitry, the monoamine system maturation, and reward behaviors and the like. So the nucleus accumbens is a primary area of reinforcement and a major site of dopamine release. So rodent tests here showed that adolescent mice are more sensitive to acute rewarding effects, resulting in upregulated signaling pathways within the nucleus accumbens and downregulated dopamine D1 receptors. And many of these changes between adolescents and adults could be due to the immaturity of the neurotransmitter systems when you're young. And that's mostly going to be at the basal forebrain. Lastly is going to be the hippocampus. Areas CA1 and CA3 are both promoted by acute nicotine treatment in adult mice, which is also not true in adolescent mice. So that's interesting. So sex differences between male and female use of nicotine. My studies show that nicotine self-administration tests show that female mice are more susceptible and vulnerable to the effects of nicotine and nicotine withdrawal. And why? We don't know, but we know that puberty and gonad maturation influences various hippocampal functions. So sex differences because of nicotine might be due to these neurotransmitter systems not being mature enough by the sex hormones that would result later in puberty. So these are my citations, and thank you very much.